You reminded us very powerfully in your history of Pakistan that there is something unique. Qaid Azam Jinnah had been thinking about constitutional law matters for a long time. This was central to what he did professionally. And I would say of the states that were born out of the colonial empires, Pakistan may be among the few where this has happened. And there's this tension that you described, which I found very powerful. On the one hand, you talked about cases in which perhaps there were undue pressures on the courts. On the other hand, it was clear that nothing can happen without the court's stamp of approval. And there were always dissenting judges. So I don't know if I should take hope from it or not, but it feels hopeful and powerful. So thank you for that reminder of the centrality of the court in modern Pakistani history. I could go on, but really I'm the least smart person here.
So shall I just want to comment on what you said? I don't know, I've never understood. I mean, the dictators assume all power, but they still want validity.
Yes.
So, and invariably they hold a referendum. And I think there's a very good, if I can throw this out, I won't copyright someone can do a PhD on it. They always get 98.4% of the votes. I don't know how that works, but maybe that's a PhD material for you there.
I'd like to meet the other 1.6%. So, I know it's late, but let's take a couple of questions. Sir, let's start with you. And please tell us your name and maybe just a half line about yourself and ask your question.
So my name is Umar Haider. I grew up in Islamabad and I work in Mass General Hospital as a doctor. Your work day seems really busy, so just really curious, what does your typical day look like between when you get up and when you go to sleep?
You want to be bored? Or put to sleep? Well, I get up pretty early. Sorry?
Actually, we should take a few questions.
Hi, my name is Veena Sarwar. I'm a journalist from Pakistan, currently based in Cambridge. You talked about constitutionalism and rights and the 1973 Constitution. One of the issues with the 73 Constitution is the Second Amendment of the MLBs. And unless, which is the takfir of declaring somebody as a non-Muslim, which is one of the things behind the kind of killings and the targeted killings of religious minorities in Pakistan. Can you envisage Pakistan, the human rights situation in Pakistan with the Second Amendment being repealed? Is that at all ever a possibility, do you think?
That's a very serious question. Let's just get one more before maybe. Yes.
I am Sajid Tawar from Washington, D.C. My question is this: since the Pakistan judiciary, according to the World Judiciary Project, is 130 out of 139, I wanted to listen from you. I wanted to hear from you what is the future of judiciary in Pakistan.
In that order. It's a very boring day, if you must know. Get up, we get 10 or 15 cases a day, so we have to go through the files, all the judges do before the sitting court, so we know roughly what it's about, otherwise we'll never finish the case. So we get up really early, read those, walk to the Supreme Court, which is about a 35-minute walk, and we work from sort of 9:30 till cases get done. The official time is 1:30, but sometimes it goes on. Beyond that, each judge has its own thing. I'm just telling you about my own. I like to dictate on how it is in court, unless it's a very complicated matter and I need to think about it and get them sort of a rough draft and clear up the English grammar and sign it the same day. And so this will take me late in the evening, and my wife will probably be calling me, when are you coming home? So I go for a walk with her, or unless she's already walked and then I walk back. And it's a very boring existence. I won't recommend it. A career change. And the question regarding Second Amendment, As a judge, I'm sworn to uphold the Constitution and the law of Pakistan. I mean, so it's not for me to propose amendments to the Constitution. That's Parliament's job. Matters come before us to see the legality of an issue, so that's really not my domain. When I stopped being a judge when I am 65 years old, maybe you can ask my opinion on that. At the moment, you mentioned repeal, that's a political question, that's for Parliament to decide or not decide. It is kind of difficult because 2/3 majority you're required to amend the Constitution. Unless you're a military dictator, then you don't need a secret vote.
And the condition of the...
And the future of the judiciary, I would hope it is bright, otherwise I wouldn't be where I am. And coming back to Hidesh's question about the pressures on the judiciary, I don't know, I mean, it's, in some ways it is probably self-imposed. So yes, I mean, I've told you, people who have dissented and nothing really happened to them, so there's no really excuse. So I wouldn't want to excuse it. I keep saying if you can't take the heat in the kitchen, then get out. I mean, you shouldn't then be there. I mean, that's if you are deciding cases under pressure, under any case under pressure, then you're not fit to be a judge. As simple as that.
Of course, you're reminding us of the massive issues at stake. Had someone asked me what I do in my house, the big question in the morning is who makes the chai? So I'm glad you're starting with constitutional matters. Let's take one more round at least. This young man here.
Assalamualaikum, sir. I'm Sadiq Sufi. I'm an undergrad at Harvard studying philosophy, and I'm from Lahore, Pakistan. I wanted to ask you about your legal philosophy in interpreting the rights enshrined in the Constitution. When you are making a judgment on what the extent of a particular right is, A, do you have a legal philosophy that you stick by, or is it more contingent on the particulars of each case before you? And B, if you have a legal philosophy, what is it exactly? You go back to the intent of the legislators, you make a judgment on what the meaning of the right is in society as we stand today, or do you rely on your personal view? And if it is the personal view that you go with, how much does Islamic law factor into your judgment? Thank you.
Very weighty questions.
Yes, I'll keep forgetting the questions.
Yes, of course.
Okay. A judge should not have personal views, that's my belief. I would categorize myself as a conservative judge. I go by the language of the Constitution and the law. However, this does not mean that I'm stopped from interpreting things like, I mean, your right to life, can you bring in environment? Human dignity, can you bring in the environment? There you can push the boundaries. There's a lot you can do in just interpreting things rather than I think this is good or I think that is bad. Probably that is not good at all for the judiciary when the self becomes important. We are sworn to uphold the Constitution and the law. So we have the power to interpret. We have the power to kind of, when you know something is grossly wrong. I mean, in the case of the women's school, yes, I do bring in Islam, not because I want to, but because the Constitution starts with, we discussed this early in the morning, sovereignty belongs to Almighty Allah. And that I view it as a positive thing, some may view it as a negative thing. And the power is to be exercised by the elected people of Pakistan, which is a sacred trust. So, and there was mention earlier in the morning on Khalifa, but I don't agree with what the speaker in the morning said. Khalifa fil ard is a Quranic term which means that not a set of individuals, but every individual is a steward of the earth. So you are responsible for all of mankind, and you're responsible for every bird, every animal, oceans, mountains, trees, everything. So how we want to further it? Article 227 of the Constitution says that no law should be made contrary to the injunctions of the Quran and Sunnah. So you can use this. I've used it in that school case, Sangota public school case, where I mentioned the Quranic verses to stem this attack on education by, I don't know, I wouldn't call them Islamists at all. I would call them simply terrorists. I mean, anybody, I mean, there are powerful verses which you can use for good. If you kill one man, it is as if one person, not one man, it doesn't talk about one Muslim, it doesn't talk about one man, it talks about one nafs, one soul. It is as if you killed all of humanity. And if you saved one, it is as if you saved all of humanity. So this terrorism, extremism, is an anathema to Islam. I mean, I just don't buy it at all. I mean, well, how do you greet? Assalamu alaikum, which is peace be upon him. And how do you respond? And upon you too. I mean, it's I don't know where this thing has come up from and why we are apologetic. We should not be apologetic. We should be very assertive in saying that this is absolutely forbidden. This is a crime. And indulging, talking with people who tell us what you talk about. Okay, don't bomb 2 schools, just bomb 3. I mean, I don't know what you could talk about. Why are you depriving women from girl education? What dialogue are you going to have with someone? I can't have a dialogue because I want total abject surrender that you should not do that. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Thank you so much for your wonderful talk that intertwined. Sorry, my name is Wahjoc. I'm a graduate student at SOAS, University of London. Your talk intertwined Pakistan's history as a nation, with its democratic history and its constitutional history, and the role of the Supreme Court. One of my colleagues, who co-contributed to a volume that I also wrote in, Yasser Qureshi, made an argument that one of the reasons that courts in the past were so deferential to the Bonapartes who came along was that judges had been drawn from the administrative service, and that as judges increasingly were drawn from the bar councils, they in a sense answered to a different public. They were less concerned with executive power and more concerned with the opinion and esteem of their legal fellows. And I was interested in whether you think that's true. And in a larger sense, I'm interested in how you see the relationship between the bar councils, the higher courts, and the interests of Pakistani society at large. Thank you.
I wish that was true, so I would have someone to blame. Okay, they are all bureaucrats. Sadly, it is not. As far as the Bar Council is concerned, what Pakistan saw, I mean, what really brought down or ended, we should say, General Pervez Musharraf's reign was the lawyers' movement, which was not just the lawyers' movement, all of civil society kind of joined in, not because they liked particular judges, it was because what they yearned for, an independent judiciary. It is not something unusual, it is what is provided in the constitution. So they just, at the end of the day, the people of Pakistan are very sensible. When rulers impose them upon themselves and they think they know everything, that's when things go wrong. If you leave it to the people, invariably they'll take the right decision, and I view it like that. So the bar councils, I think, are very important and play a very important role. They led that movement for the restoration of the judiciary or independent judiciary. So yes, they suffered. Like lawyers have also been killed. I mean, there were like 80 or so lawyers killed in a suicide attack in Balochistan. Then there were like 55 killed on the 12th of May. This was 8th of August 2016, and then 12th of May. When was that? 2000 in Karachi. 12th of May, when 55 people were slain for demanding an independent judiciary. So yes, people have paid sacrifices, and I think we should not disappoint them. I think, does that answer your question?
So it's getting late. What I want to do is maybe just take one last round of questions and then we can end. So let's take a couple of them together.
Hi, my name is Nilat Ramani. I'm a sociologist. I teach at LUMS. Thank you so much for being here, for speaking to us, and also thank you so much for taking such courageous stances as you've been doing for the last few years. I know you would say I'm just doing my job, and I know. But I also thank you, because it's not easy to do your job in Pakistan, especially if you're trying to defend democracy by, making sure all of our institutions respect the law, which we know many of our institutions, particularly one, does not. And I think you mentioned that throughout your talk. So, and I know you can't predict the future, but you have observed the military for a long time, very closely, and you've also been subject to whatever their machinations. And so I was wondering now, with all of us wondering what's going to happen next, because we're at a kind of important, maybe, crossroads, who knows, in terms of the relationship between the civilian government and the military. And we're being told that the military is changing its approach and going to become genuinely neutral. I was wondering if you think that, just from your observations, are they going to change, or will we? Because we know this hybrid regime, perhaps we're not sure if it's gone yet, but we're being told that something is going to shift. Do you think there's actually going to be a shift?
Since you're being asked to predict the future, I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about it. But it's a very good question, contextually. Yes.
Thank you for your wonderful talk. My name is Sitara Noor, and I'm a managing director fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School in the Welfare Center. My question, I understand you have a limitation in terms of to an extent you can answer certain questions because of your position. So I would be very specifically asked about the reformation within judiciary, because there are challenges from the external challenges, of course, the way system in Pakistan works, but there are whole host of issues within the judiciary, and judicial reforms have been something which has been pending for really, really long. There are cases that go on for 20 years and rather for generations. So what are 3 things that you think are imminent that judiciary must implement as of now?
Do you want to maybe take those 2? Yes.
Okay. But the break comes and I forget the question. The future. First of all, the Constitution is very clear. Everybody takes an oath. The armed forces take the oath that they will not involve themselves in politics. So it's not something that is a favor. It is what the Constitution stipulates and what they should do. Like if I decide to violate the Constitution, I've taken an oath to uphold and defend and preserve the Constitution. I cannot do that. I don't like something in the Constitution, I shouldn't be where I am. So then if you don't like something in the Constitution, then you should not. As far as, I think, pressures are concerned, I think you mentioned it, I don't think there are any pressures. I mean, if you want to assume pressures, what do I see the future as? I don't bother about the future at all. I mean, yes, I do bother about the future when it's climate change, when it's species destruction, when it's contamination of the water sources. But do whatever you can do today, because there's no guarantee you'll be alive tomorrow. I'll just use a saying of the Prophet. He was asked, he was asked, Ya Rasulullah, if I have a sapling in my hand and if doomsday comes, what should I do? He said, plant it. So what's the point stressing yourself out for the future? We don't know. How can any one of us guarantee we'll be alive tomorrow? No. So why stress about it? Do whatever you can do today. You'll be very happy and content. You bother about what will happen in the future. It's a no-win game. I mean, you'll never win. I mean, even in countries, it's not just Pakistan. I mean, why do suicides in sort of very well-off countries which have absolutely no problems that we consider as problems, and why are people killing themselves? So it's don't think about the future. Think about future, what you can do good in the future, but otherwise just carry on. It's as simple as that. No magic stick, no magic wand required for that. And sorry, your question was what?
Three steps you can take right now.
Yeah, actually, it's very cheap litigation in Pakistan. I would say it's free. Or I mean, in the West, you think twice because the cost that will be imposed. So we can't impose costs, the kind of costs that are imposed here. So everybody, okay, you just say, I'll take my case up, and even if you start losing, if you're a tenant sitting in someone's house at a peppercorn rent, you'll say no. Eviction order, I will challenge it. Then you lose at the district court, I'll challenge it in the higher court, then I'll challenge it in the Supreme Court. So you gain 20 years. So, okay, you still win because you save so much on rent. So if you owe someone money, you never pay him. So, we have to maybe bring in legislation which should make litigation expensive. And yes, judges should be vigilant enough to see which are genuine cases and which are not, and just sort of finish them off as soon as possible.
So I know we could keep going, and this is truly fascinating, but it is Yaqub is reminding me of a story, though, that I think would be a nice story for you to conclude with. The case of the missing person you recovered in Balochistan, which I think is exemplary of some of the issues we've been talking about. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I can, because the petitions were filed under Article 199 of the Constitution, seeking a writ of quo warranto, writ of habeas corpus, literally means produce the body, produce the person, and I think there was a very good outcome of people coming forward, and I would ask them, where were you? I don't know, my face was covered, I don't know. So, okay, fine, at least the person has been recovered. So if you use the system, it does deliver, maybe not all the time, but it does deliver. So it's, but provided you use the system. It's very, in a way, very difficult also, because if you have kidnapped somebody, you're not going to say, I have him. So there are ways to do it, because you can go and deny it and just simply deny it. And where will that leave me? I mean, I would just say, okay, I mean, I don't believe you, I mean, okay, then, so it's kind of, there's a particular way you go about with these cases, and there have been good results, I would say. I think by the time I'm left as Chief Justice of the Balochistan High Court, there are various techniques you can use, learning on the job as well, like having a specific day for the missing person cases. Like I think I had it on a Tuesday, so I would have the head of the police, the head of the Interior Ministry, the head of Defense, everyone in court, rather than the waste, and they would know that, okay, this man is serious about it, so let's look into the matter. And sometimes people would emerge suddenly and say, yeah, I'm fine. Okay. Fine, you want to name anybody? No, I don't recognize that person. So that's, at least that rate bears fruit. So it's kind of, you have to kind of make sure that the other person takes you seriously. I think that's the important thing.
Thank you. I think, so Yaqub, of course, who is a scholar of constitutional history, could have us going until tomorrow morning. But what I want to say is thank you very much. I think speaking, you ended on the word serious, and you've also shown us what serious issues are at stake, as you said in your talk. It's the future of humanity. I also really appreciate the context. I mean, reminding us that, the first word that was revealed to the Prophet was Iqra, is also a very useful reminder of the context of things and ways in which things can be read, especially in light of that case. I'm reminded, that one of the interpretations of Faiz Ahmed Faiz's "Hum parvarish e logon kalam karte rahenge, hum parvarish e logon ka कलम करते रहेंगे, जो दिल पे गुजरती है वो रकम करते रहेंगे. That he was actually specifically thinking of Iqra when he was writing that, according to one interpreter. So there is always a depth of context, and things can be interpreted in multiple ways. So thank you very much for taking us on that tour of constitutional history in Pakistan. And I also wanted to thank His Excellency. Thank you very much for your 360 view of Pakistan, past, present, and future. I don't know the last time I've had two such distinguished guests here, so I'm